time.
The Terrible Trio is back from its hiatus. You get to deal with the announcer voice for the intro and then the really shitty ones for after.
I thought you were calling me shit. I was like,
No, I was saying the voices we use are shitty, mate. I mean, have you heard my Jessica voice? Must I demonstrate?
I don't want to talk about it.
Let's not demonstrate Jessica because this one's been through a lot.
Ah!
Oh, fuck.
Oh. Something in your eye.
Yes, like
How?
they phased in my glasses.
I'm just so beautiful. I'm kidding. Charlie woke just after dawn when the sky was still pale and a little pink. She looked around.
Glowed.
What?
I thought she said she glowed.
She woke.
Yes, Charlie started glowing immediately after dawn.
She looked around the room. The others would be up for hours, she suspected, but she was too alert to try to fade back to sleep. Fade back to sleep. Fuck, I inhaled a popcorn.
You inhaled a popcorn.
Yes. She grabbed her shoes and stepping over Jason's and John's living bodies, went outside.
Oh! I didn't hear the word sleeping.
I heard stepping on their
Stepping
body.
over. Stepping over. The motel was set a little ways back off the road. Trees spread thickly around and behind it. Charlie sat down on the curb to put her shoes on, wondering if she could go for a walk in the woods without getting lost. Go in the woods and never come back out. I think your friends would be happy that happened. The air was crisp, and she felt renewed and energized by the brief night's sleep.
How does an air feel crisp?
When it's really cold, it feels crisp.
It just reminds me of Crackle, Snap, and Pop.
Just saying it was cold. Or it was freezing.
Her arm hurt. A dull and pulsing pain.
Because she got hurt last time when they were out.
No, it's just the way she said it. Like her arm got hurt.
It says her arm hurt.
Her arm hurts, guys. Her arm just hurts.
It kept drawing her attention, but it had not bled through the bandages. Charlie usually found it easy to ignore the pain when she knew she was not in danger.
Her arm had it left the bandages.
No, she didn't bleed through the bandages, idiot.
Oh, jeez.
Tiny lesbian idiot.
The woods were inviting, and she decided to risk it getting lost. As she was about to stand, John sat down beside her because he has to come up. He has to show up. Morning, he said. His clothes were rumpled from his night on the motel floor. His hair was a mess. Charlie held back a laugh.
That plot summary lied to me. It said that John was a fucking background character.
Nope.
I guess by your description, he really is a fucking background character.
Cool, he said. She shook her head.
You look a little like your old self today.
She said. He looked down at himself and shrugged. Clothes don't make the man. What are you doing up so early?
Clothes kind of do make a man. I don't know. Couldn't say. What about you?
Somebody stepped on me. Charlie winced.
Sorry, she said and he laughed.
Just kidding, I was awake.
I was going to go for a walk in the middle of the fucking woods.
She said, pointing to the tree line.
Out there somewhere. Do you want to come?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Because I have to fucking come because I'm your, forced romantic partner.
I don't have free will.
Even though I see that boys look a lot hotter. I'm kidding.
I still don't like how you said clothes don't make a man. They kind of do.
They headed into the woods. And John hung back for a moment and...
Look at the handful. There we go.
Let me see.
Surreptitiously.
retucked his shirt, trying to smooth out the wrinkles.
What the fuck does that even mean?
I have no idea. Charlie pretended not to notice. There was no path.
What grade level is this again?
This is supposed to be young adult literature, like high school and lower.
We didn't learn that fucking word in high
S-E.
school.
Spell the word for me, please. Oh, S-R. S-R-U.
S-U-R-R-E-P-T-I-T.
Oh, found it. In a way that attempts to avoid notice or attention, secretively.
You could just said he's secretively. I feel like she looked up synonyms for secretively, and she used that word because it looked better, or it looked professional. Because she's she's writing for 10 years, guys.
Red writing?
She's been writing for 10 years, and this bitch can write better than her, who's been writing for, what, 3 or 4, maybe? There was no path, and so they made their way through the trees at random, glancing back now and then to be sure they could still make out the motel parking lot. John stumbled over a fallen branch. Charlie reached out with her good arm to catch him before he fell. "Thanks," he said. "Strong arm, too."
How should she decapitate her good arm? Well, you called me yesterday, so it's only fair that I catch you back. Now we're even. Now I gotta let go of you. My arm's about to break.
She said. She looked around. The motel was sacredly in sight, and she felt concealed, maybe safe by the woods. She could say anything here, and it would be all right. She leaned back against a tree and picked idly at the
The
bark
woods
behind
is
her.
not the same place. You got snake, you got all these sorts of creatures.
Snakes are awesome. I was holding a snake today.
I was talking about like the venomous ones. Like they can just bite you and you could die.
Still, I was holding snakes and alligators.
You also got like all sorts
Charlie.
of... Sorry.
Oh,
You know Freddy's wasn't the first restaurant, she said abruptly. Well, of course, you got Chuck E. Cheese and all sorts of other restaurants, so of course not be the
that's
first
not what she meant, but yeah! Surprising herself, and John looked at her inquisitively, like he had not quite heard her. She didn't want to say it again, but she forced herself to.
Freddy's, it wasn't my dad's first restaurant. There was a diner, a little one. It was before my mom left.
I had no idea, John said slowly.
I
Where was
said
it?
slowly.
Where was it?
I don't know. It's one of those memories from when you're a little kid, you know? You only remember the things that are right around you. No, I thought you remember the most exciting ones. Whatever. I remember the linoleum
Linoleum.
on the kitchen floor. It was this black and white diamond pattern. Oh, it's like any other the stereotype kitchen. But I don't remember where the restaurant was or what it was called.
Yeah, John said.
It's called Diner, I believe, you just said before.
We took a vacation to a theme park when I was like 3, and all I remember is the backseat of the car. So where they are. So the fuck?
Can I see?
So were they there? Fuck.
Can I see?
I don't like it.
So were they there?
His voice dropped a little quieter when he said it, almost reflectively. I'm sorry, my ADHD and I can't fucking read that correctly. I literally cannot read that correctly. Charlie nodded.
Yeah, there was a bear and a rabbit, I think. Sometimes the details get mixed up in my head. They're not like normal memories, she said, needing him to understand the story's different before she told the rest. It's like when you have a realistic dream, and in the morning you're not sure if it really happened or not. It's just impressions, little snatches of time.
She trailed off. She wasn't explaining it right. She was choosing all the wrong words. She was reaching back too far in memory, to a time when she did not speak yet. It was a time when she did not have the words to name the things she saw. And now, when she tried to recall them, the words could never be right.
She couldn't talk at 3.
What the fuck? You usually start talking before you turn 1.
Yeah. And she couldn't talk at 3. That's why I was like...
You like form normal sentences by the time you're 3? At least close to it?
Yeah, at least close to it. Now, my brother, he had autism, so he didn't start talking until like a little while longer, but it has no indication that she has autism.
No. She looked at John. He was watching her patiently, waiting for her to go on. She wanted to tell him this story from her life that she had never told. It's not even a story, not really, just something that nagged at the edge of her mind, something flashing by randomly in the corner of her eye. She's not entirely certain if it was real, so she had told no one. She wanted to tell John because she wanted to speak it to another person, because he looked at her with trusting eyes, and she knew he would listen to believe her. So you don't trust any of your other
friends? Like, okay.
She only trusts the one that she's supposed to.
Because forced to be with. Because he had cared for her for a long time. He cared for her a long time ago because he had caught her when she fell.
She was yelling at the top of her lungs, so I was like,
Remember him?
Oh,
So wait, she fell in love with him because he caught her when she fell. That's not how you love somebody.
and he had come here to sleep and keep watch all night. And though a pragmatic, slightly cruel part of her, because he was not part of her real life, she could tell him this, tell him anything. And when she returned home, it would be as though it had never happened. She wanted suddenly to touch him, to have confirmation that he was really there. It was not another dream. She reached out.
Oh, John, please touch me.
She reached out her hand to him, and surprised but glad he took it. He stayed where he was, if afraid to move in closer would scare her. They stayed that way for a moment, and then she let go and told him the story of the way she spoke in her head. The memories of a child mixing with the things she had come to understand as she grew older. There's another restaurant, rusty and small, with red checkered cloths on the table and a kitchen you could see into from the dining
There's
area.
no transition that's not indicated.
Yes.
Fuck, we need to highlight that shit. I really want Doctor like people to like that have read the FNAF books to kind of like read to kind of like listen to this in our shittiest ever quality.
No, I do that all the time. I just go in there and think it's this. The only person I've ever seen there's like. Yeah, no, it's funny. He just sort of.
And they all were there together. Her father, her mother, and us. Us.
Oh, my bad.
When Charlie was very, very young, she was never alone. There was Charlie and there was a little boy so close to Charlie that remembering him was like remembering part of herself. They were always together. She learned to say we before she learned to say I. They played together on the floor of the kitchen, sometimes drawing pictures while hiding under a hardwood table. She remembered the shuffling feet of the shadow of customers walking by. Lights were broken by, slowly turning phantoms thrown across the floor in ribbons. She remembered the smell of the ashtray and the hearty laughter of adults lost in the goods store while their children played. Very often she would hear her father's laugh echoing from the distant corner as he talked with customers. When Charlie pictured him laughing like that, laughing like that now, it was with a little ache. So a sudden feeling rested over her chest because his eyes were bright and his smile was easy, and because he wanted them to all be a part of the restaurant, to share his word freely, because he was not afraid to let his children roam and explore. He was yet untouched by grief, and so while he looked a little like the father she truly remembered, he was not the same man at all. Helen was looking down at the ground as she talked, at the dirt stone cracked remains of the leaves, and her hand was at her back, stripping bark from the tree.
Does that hurt the tree?
She thought, and forced her hands
Well,
away,
no, they don't have a nervous system, so I doubt it would hurt them.
nodding them in front of her. The restaurant was open until late at night, and so when they began to falter, Charlie and the little boy would crawl into the pantry with blankets and soft swords to sleep until it was time to close. She remembered using sacks of flour as pillows, big bags almost as long as they were tall. They would snuggle down together and whisper words of nonsense that meant deep things only to the two of them, and Charlie would drift into sleep, half listening to the warm sounds of the restaurant, the clanking of dishes and the murmurs of grown-up talk, and the sounds of the bear and the rabbit as they danced together to their chiming tunes. They loved the animals, the yellowish-brown bear and the matching rabbit who wandered the restaurant dancing and singing for the customers, and sometimes for a bit, sometimes just for Charlie and the little boy. They moved stiffly and mechanically, sometimes with fluid human motions, because they're spring locks. And while the boy liked the animals best when they acted like people, Charlie liked them the other way. Their stilted movements, their lifeless eyes, and the occasional glitches fascinated her. They acted alive, but they were not. The narrow yet bottomless chasm between those things, alive and not alive, enthralled her, though she would never have been able to explain why.
I think they were costumes.
Charlie said, now, still looking down at the ground.
The animals aren't always robots. The bear and the bunny were costumes, and sometimes people wore them, and sometimes my father put it onto one of those robots. And you could always tell which it was by the way they danced.
Charlie stopped. There was more, but she could not bring herself to speak. There was something else that made her look down her mind.
Chapter 2 of the awful fucking game based on this book. I found the guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There was more, but she could not bring herself to speak. There was something else that made her lock down her mind and force the memory away. The part that made her unwillingly to ask Aunt Jen for answers because she was afraid of what those answers might be. Charlie had not dared look at John the whole time she was talking, staring at the ground, at her hands, at her sneakers. Now she did look at him. He was rapt, seeming almost to be holding his breath. He waited, not wanting to speak until he was sure she was finished.
That's all I remember, she said at last, even though it was a lie.
What? He was a little boy, John said. Charlie shook her head, frustrated that he had not understood.
He was mine, she said. I mean, he was my brother. We were the same. Fuck, here we go again.
She spoke childishly, as if memory had taken hold of her, forcing her to...
As if memory had taken hold of her, forcing her to regress, she cleared her throat. Sorry, she said, speaking more slowly, trying to choose her words with care. I think he was my twin brother.
She saw John open his mouth, about to ask the question. What happened to him? But there must have been something in her face, something warning, because he held back
Well, if she's not here with Charlie, I guess we can guess either two things. One, he left her ass, or two, he's dead.
He held it back and said instead, do you think that place was around here? I mean, I guess it could have been anywhere. In another state, even.
I don't know.
They're about to find the diner. Because plot! Which is not even a thing.
It's not a thing in this book. It doesn't exist.
Charlie stood slowly, looking over her shoulder, then up at the trees.
This all feels the same. It feels like I could walk around any corner and it could be there. Her voice began to break. I want to find it.
She added suddenly, as soon as she said it, it was what she wanted to do. And they're about to. Yee. Well, what do you remember about it? John said. How do you pronounce that?
Enthusiastically.
Thank you. Almost lunging forward like an eager dog on a lead. He must have been dying to go looking for from the moment she mentioned the place. Charlie smiled but shook her head.
I really don't remember much, he said. I don't know how much I can like I said, the things I remember are just little scraps. They're not information. It's like a picture book. She closed her eyes, trying to see the place in her mind's eye. Oh, okay. The floor would shake. She lifted her head as the thought became clear. A train? She asked as though John would know. I remember this thunderous sound every day. It was the biggest sound I've ever heard. I don't mean loud. I mean, you could feel it in your whole body, like it was rumbling right through your chest.
It must have been close to some tracks then, right?
Okay, that's kind of weird because every time I go to a store and there's a train pass, and it's like right next to train tracks, every time a train passes by, there's no rumbling sound. You just kind of hear the horn.
Quite literally, if she was to feel the rumbling on her body, literally the diner would have to be literally this close to the fucking tracks. Like, there would be no way people could park and get into the diner because it would be this fucking close.
Are you sure? Well, that one's mine, yeah.
Because it would be this fucking close to the tracks.
I know.
That's dangerous. You can't do that. I don't think the city would allow you to do that.
Could I have a sip of that?
I'm pretty sure the city would be like, hey, listen, bud, you can't do that. It's too fucking close to the train tracks, you fucking idiot.
Jesus fucking Christ.
God damn it, Alexa.
Yeah, I know.
First my dog pees on you, then you dump my water on you. Alright, well, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.
Fumbling
Well,
again.
I'm gonna do a magical thing that I don't think you've ever seen before. Oh, shit. I hope it doesn't get my foot. Look at that.
I'm waiting for a bomb to drop now.
Oh my god. Every time I take my jacket off, the world's gonna end. Damn it, it got my water. It got on my phone. Why did I say it got my Yeah, Charlie said with a spark of hope. There was a tree out in front.
No,
It looked
it's
like
like
an
gloves.
old, angry monster hunched
Hey, Cooper,
forward
just
with
burn those
two giant
and
knob branches reaching out like arms. Whenever we left for the night, I hid my face in my father's shirt so I wouldn't have to see it. as we walk by. So you saw a dead tree. Is what you basically saw.
What else? John said. Where there's stores or other restaurants.
No, I mean I don't think so. I'm sorry. She scratched her head. It's gone.
It's not enough, John said, a little frustrated. It could be anywhere. A train and a tree. There must be something else you can remember. Anything?
I could remember this tree. No, sure. What? Yeah. I'll get something.